Parliament adjourned for 5th day in a row.
सदन की कार्रवाई आज 12 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
Chaos stores Parliament session again.
प्रश्नकाल।
Opposition corners government over key issues. Struggles to find common ground.
आज 5वां दिन है, स्थगित हो रहा है 10 मिनट के अंदर। ऐसा नहीं कि 1 घंटा 2 घंटा पहले 1 घंटे 2 घंटे नारेबाजी हुआ करती थी, हम मुद्दे उठाते थे, हम वेल में जाते थे।
Winter session washout looms large. Parliament logjam, top focus on 6 p.m. prime.
Hello and welcome. Good evening. You're watching 6 p.m. prime here on India Today. I'm Akshita Nandagopal. We've started off this week of another washout day in Parliament. The 5th straight day of the winter session being washed out, which means essentially there's been no business that's been conducted. We're going to be breaking down in this edition of 6 p.m. Prime why we're seeing this logjam and whether we can finally expect some business to happen tomorrow. Every second that you see this kind of disruptions, chaos playing out in Parliament, you and I are paying for that. And I'll tell you how. Let's begin. After 5 days of logjam in Parliament, finally we could see some business taking place in the winter session of Parliament starting tomorrow. And that's because you see a meeting that's taken place with the Lok Sabha Speaker and representatives of different political parties. According to sources, we're also going to be seeing a discussion in Parliament on the Constitution celebration, the 75 years of the Constitution of India. The celebration took place last week. You're going to see a discussion on that on 13th and 14th December. Now, there's a possibility that Prime Minister Modi could also intervene in that particular discussion. Piyush Mishra is joining us live with more details on this. Piyush, this was a demand from the opposition to have some time slotted, set aside for a discussion on Constitution Day celebrations. It's clear at this point that the Congress plans to have Rahul Gandhi lead the charge for them. Is there a possibility of Prime Minister Modi really speaking?
Well, yes, Akshita, what we are now learning is that there is a possibility of Prime Minister Modi intervening on the discussion on Constitution Day debate. Remember that the opposition, the political parties are requested for a discussion on Constitution Day, and looking at that in the meeting which was called by Lok Sabha Speaker, it has now been decided that the discussion on Constitution Day will take place on 13th and 14th of this month, and in Lok Sabha, and the 16th and 17th in Rajya Sabha. So that's what we are now given to understand, and that's a confirmation also coming in from Union Parliament Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju, where he has confirmed that yes, the discussion will take place. The opposition is going to field various senior opposition leaders like Rahul Gandhi, Akhilesh Yadav, Dimple Yadav. Most likely Priyanka Gandhi will also be speaking during that debate. PM Narendra Modi can also intervene. Remember that on 26th of December, the government had also celebrated Constitution Day, where the joint sitting was done, which was addressed by President of India. We have also seen how the government had also decided to celebrate the Constitution Day across the year, where multiple programs have also been planned by the government. And during the discussion, we can expect government to point out about the steps that have been taken by the government.
We've seen an all-out political fight over the Constitution in the general elections, and an attempt also to push that narrative in the Maharashtra elections. But the opposition plans to bring in an umbrella of issues when they speak during this discussion, set for 2 days in both houses of Parliament. Piyush, stay on with me. We're going to keep coming across to you for updates of what really the government strategy is. Remember, today saw the winter session of Parliament being adjourned for the 5th straight day. Just like that, in a matter of minutes, you saw adjournments taking place for the next 24 hours because of non-stop ruckus. And it just about lasted for a minute before the Speaker went ahead and adjourned the House till the next day. Prime Minister Modi met with Home Minister Amit Shah and BJP Chief JP Nadda earlier today. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla also conducted an all-party meet to end this logjam between the centre and the opposition. And so the takeaway from that is that there will be a debate on the constitution which will be held on 13th and 14th December. The TMC is going to raise their own slew of issues. They're going to raise Bangladesh. The Samajwadi Party is going to, in all likelihood, raise the Sambal violence, and the Congress will raise the Adani storm. Now, this is where you've also seen a divide in the opposition ranks, which is shown, which is translated to ruckus in the parliament as well. Because reportedly within the India bloc, there are many parties who don't agree with how the Congress is handling this issue, which we'll talk about in just a bit. But take a look at the reactions that came in soon after the meeting with Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla, what different political parties had to say about whether you can expect finally some functioning of parliament from tomorrow.
जितना भी ऑपोजिशन पार्टी के सांसद है, जितना भी ऑपोजिशन पार्टी के लीडर्स है, सबसे अनुरोध है कि जो आज एग्रीमेंट हुए हैं और पार्लियामेंट चलने के लिए तैयार हुए हैं, हम सब मिलकर के पार्लियामेंट को अच्छा से चलाएं। देश सुनना चाहता है, देखना चाहता है कि हमारा सांसद कैसे काम करते हैं। इसलिए कल से सुचारू रूप से पार्लियामेंट चलेगा, ऐसा एग्री हुआ है और ऐसा ही चलेगा, मुझे पूरा उम्मीद है। और सबसे अपील है कि हम जो रिमेनिंग हमारा शीतकालीन सत्र का जो समय हमारे पास है, हम अच्छी तरह से उपयोग करें।
पहले दिन से हम कह रहे हैं, जो आज भी हमने कहा, विपक्ष चाहता है कि संविधान के 75वीं जयंती पर 2 दिन की चर्चा लोकसभा में भी हो, राज्यसभा में भी हो। हम सरकार के औपचारिक बुलेटिन का इंतजार कर रहे हैं। उन्होंने हमें अनौपचारिक रूप से आज बताया कि जल्द ही ये घोषित होगा, तारीख घोषित होगा, और जैसे ही तारीख घोषित होता है हम आगे बढ़ सकते हैं।
आज का मीटिंग में कल से हाउस शुरू होगा। होपफुली हाउस विल बिगिन टुमारो, ऑल वी हैव एग्रीड, एंड 13th and 14th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के ऊपर डिस्कशन होगा।
It has been decided to run the house from tomorrow properly, and then the discussion on the Constitution of India will be held on 13th and 14th. Maybe 14th or 13th on 16th.
In Lok Sabha only.
In Lok Sabha. They are going to hold the meeting in there also. Rajya Sabha also they are going to conduct.
धर्मेंद्र जी, आज ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग हुई थी, क्या चर्चा हुई इस ऑल पार्टी मीटिंग?
बहुत सारी मुद्दों पे बात हुई, लेकिन समाजवादी पार्टी का पक्ष है कि संबल पे चर्चा हो। हम लोग चाहते हैं सदन चले, और पहले दिन से मांग कर रहे हैं कि संबल पे चर्चा करा के सदन को सुचारू रूप से चलाइए। लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं महसूस ऐसा हो रहा है सत्ता पक्ष के लोग इस सदन को नहीं चलाना चाहते थे, क्योंकि जिस तरीके के गतिरोध दूर करने का आज प्रयास हुआ, ये पहले दिन हो जाता है।
कल से उम्मीद कर
सदन के 5-6 दिन बच जाते हैं।
कल से उम्मीद कर सकते हैं गतिरोध खत्म होगा और चर्चा होगी।
हाँ बिल्कुल, चर्चा हो तो गतिरोध खत्म हो।
एक सवाल ये कि अडानी के मुद्दे को लेकर कांग्रेस पार्टी काफी हावी, आपको लगता है कि चर्चा इस पे ज्यादा जरूरी है कि संबल पे ज्यादा जरूरी है?
देखिए, हम लोग संबल पे सबसे महत्वपूर्ण, वहाँ लोग सताए जा रहे हैं, अन्याय हो रहा है। 2700 से ज्यादा लोगों के खिलाफ मुकदमे हैं, 5 लोगों की जान गई है। आज भी वहाँ लोग डरे हुए हैं, सहमे हुए हैं। सरकार और वहाँ के प्रशासन के लोग लगातार एक भय और आतंक का माहौल बनाए हुए हैं। तो चर्चा जरूरी संबल की ज्यादा है, जिस पर समाजवादी पार्टी शुरू से कायम है। और चूंकि अब किसानों के भी आंदोलन चालू है, किसान भी हमारी प्राथमिकता में है, और इस पर भी चर्चा हम लोग जरूर चाहिए।
5 days of the winter session of Parliament has been completely wasted, with not a single matter of business actually coming up, and the House being adjourned in a matter of minutes, which makes it clear that neither the government nor the opposition actually allowed the House to function. And it's convenient for them to go ahead and dismiss it with their own politics, their own narratives. But this is the reality of what it costs to run Parliament. For just 1 minute, it takes 2.5 lakh rupees of the taxpayers' money to run Parliament, just for 1 minute. Today, essentially, Parliament ran for about 2 minutes, and then the rest of the time completely adjourned. So there was no business whatsoever. For 1 hour running Parliament, the cost is 1.5 crore rupees. For 6 hours in a day, which is the minimum amount of time you expect some productivity, some business, because we're coughing up 9 crore rupees for Parliament to function for 6 hours a day. And that money is still spent irrespective of whether the House is adjourned or not, because all your MPs are there, the resources are required, because you never know if business is going to happen. For 5 days, Remember, 5 days, which has been washed out, essentially means 45 crores has been completely wasted. Money gone down the drain because not one productive session has taken place. Not one productive day have we really witnessed since the start of the winter session. More really on those details of exactly how much it costs to run Parliament and what played out today when you had less than 2 minutes of business within which it was already adjourned. All of that in our next report.
Allow the Parliament to function. Don't make it dysfunctional.
Ruckus and sloganeering continues on day 5 of winter session of Parliament. After a washout in the first week, Parliament resumed proceedings on Monday morning. Both houses saw similar scenes of disruption. First, the Rajya Sabha was adjourned for the day. The Lok Sabha followed soon.
आज 12 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है.
The opposition is insisting on discussion on issues like Gautam Adani's indictment in the US, violence in Sambhal, ethnic clashes in Manipur. Congress leader Jairam Ramesh accused the ruling BJP of running away from debate.
पहले 1 घंटे 2 घंटे नारेबाजी हुआ करती थी, हम मुद्दे उठाते थे, हम वेल में जाते. हम देख रहे हैं इस सत्र में, क्योंकि अडानी के मुद्दे पर चर्चा नहीं चाहती, मणिपुर के मुद्दे पर चर्चा नहीं चाहती, अजमेर और संभल के मुद्दे पर चर्चा नहीं चाहती, इसीलिए पूरे तरीके से कोशिश की जा रही है कि सदन न चले.
The divide in the opposition ranks was evident, with the Trinamool Congress skipping the meet chaired by Mallikarjun Kharge. While the Congress is primarily on Adani, the TMC wants discussion on Bangladesh and Manipur crisis.
House chalna chahiye. TMC has many burning issues, including their state, and it is the responsibility of the major ruling party to see that the House runs. They are showing their not interest that the House runs. And the House belongs to the opposition, but this BJP government is not in a mood also to run the House.
Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla convened an all-party meet in an attempt to break the deadlock. The government has agreed to a discussion to mark 75 years of framing the constitution. The washout is costing the taxpayer heavily. Each minute of running Parliament costs the Exchequer 2.5 lakh rupees. If we assume that Parliament functions for 6 hours daily, then the total cost of running Parliament per day is around 9 crore rupees. Going by these numbers, around 45 crore rupees taxpayers' money has been lost already. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar was expected to brief the House of India's relation with China in the light of the recent agreement on the line of actual control, but that is now likely to happen on Tuesday.
Floor leaders of different parties had a very long conversation with Om Birla, and Om Birla said there's a certain procedure that you need to follow. All the discussions will happen, and the very crucial discussion on constitution will now take place on the 13th and on the 14th of December in Lok Sabha, and the 16th and the 17th of December in the Rajya Sabha. This is Aishwarya Paliwal reporting for India Today.
All right, let's bring in on this broadcast as we look at what's really played out in Parliament, and hopeful that from tomorrow we will see some business taking place. Let's bring in on this broadcast Congress Member of Parliament from Virudhunagar in Tamil Nadu, Mr. Manikam Tagore, who's joining us on this broadcast. Mr. Tagore, Vanakkam, thank you very much for joining us here on India Today. So the question right now, with all that we've been seeing playing out in Parliament, is the opposition also to blame for the non-stop ruckus, the chaos and the lack of business in Parliament in the winter session?
Yeah, good evening. We had been, India Alliance from the day one has been demanding that we need some issues to be discussed that are very important for us. One was the Adani scandal, then the Manipur and the Sambhal violence. And we were insisting for a debate on the first day itself. And the government was not ready. And you all know that before, on Saturday only, in that first week when Parliament was functioning, Saturday only the Adani scandal came out. Therefore, we wanted a discussion on that day itself. Second day was the Constitution Day. Therefore, after the second day meeting, the floor leaders of the Congress party met the Honorable Speaker and the government and expressed that we should have a 75 years Constitution celebration debate, which was a convention earlier also. 2 times the parliament has celebrated it with 2 days debate in both the houses. Well, we were insisting for these demands, and therefore the government was not ready to accept those demands in the previous week. And this week also, in the first day, they were not. They were in the first day. They were not ready to do it. But today evening, when the house was adjourned, when honorables called for call for the India Alliance leaders meeting, it was accepted. There was a breakthrough was done, and the debate for constitutional celebrations, constitutions, 75 years of Indian constitutions debate will happen on 11th and 12th, 13th, 14th in Lok Sabha.
But what about, sir, there's also a question right now about whether there's been a divide in the opposition over these issues. For example, your party is constantly raising the Adani controversy. Now, reportedly, the TMC, SP aren't really on board with that. They believe that there are different issues that should be brought up. Is it that lack of strategy in the India bloc that's reflected now in all that's happening?
We have to understand that India bloc meets on every Monday and whenever it is needed also. India blocs include the Samajwadi, Aam Aadmi Party, DMK, and all other 13 parties. Usually TMC is not taking part in these kind of parliamentary meetings, and therefore we don't know about what TMC thinks about it, because they had conveyed to the Congress President, Honorable Kharge Saab, that the first day when it was previous Monday, they were being called. They told that they are having a national working committee in Calcutta. We as Congress party wants to reach out to all the opposition parties, and we wanted to have coordinated effort, and we had been trying for that in the previous session, Parliament also, 17th and 18th Lok Sabha also. We are continuing with our effort to coordination. We all sat together in the Parliament opposition leaders chamber and decided that we will take up these issues, and our demand for the debate for 75th year Constitution celebrations was a very important issue, because it will cover many other issues also can be covered in that debate itself. Therefore, we have been insisting for that debate to be accepted. So we were asking for that debate to take place in this week. But the government, we know that the government is happy with
the government has been saying that the government has been saying that it's the opposition that's not been willing to cooperate, and that's why we've seen this kind of chaos and, you know, non-stop winter session so far being a complete washout with no business. The government is putting the blame on the opposition, on your party as well.
That's completely wrong. We all know that the government was not having a plan to have a discussion on the constitution in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. They were not having any kind of idea itself to celebrate that kind of discussions. Where it came it came from the opposition parties, particularly the India Alliance. We proposed to the government that should be a debate on the constitution, 75 years of constitution, because we are already we had celebrated Quit India movement for 70 years and 75 years. Then we had celebrated the Indian independence also in the parliament for special session. But there are precedents. Therefore, we should continue with that precedents to have a debate on the issue of on this constitution 75 years. The government want their business to only be carried out. They don't accept any kind of people's issue. They don't want the people's issue to be debated. Therefore, they are happy to not to run the parliament, because it is a Gujarat model approach they are doing it. In Gujarat also, Mr. Modi and Amit Shah never allows the assembly to function. They just want their speeches to be heard, and all other opposition speeches will not be heard. That is the Gujarat model for them. We don't want that model to continue. Therefore, we have been very clear that we should have a debate in the parliament on the constitution, and now the government has accepted for that
You're
debate.
saying on the Constitution Day debate, you will raise a number of issues. For the Congress, Mr. Tagore, is the only issue that you want to raise Adani, or is it going to be other issues? Is your number one concern and priority only the Adani controversy? Is that the only thing you want to raise?
We have to understand that the Adani scam was not our issue. We were not created that issue. That issue came. Adani scam came to the session because of that US court charge sheet and others. Therefore, only the government was not ready to yield. It was completely out of gear. The government was completely out of gear because Adani, the word, they don't want to be in the don't want the Adani word to be registered in the parliamentary history itself. Therefore, they will always be upset. They will be not knowing what to do itself. That's the government problem. Therefore, Adani is a problem for them, and Adani for us. Adani, the way they hand over the wealth to Adani is our problem for them. For us. Therefore, we continue to raise our issues, and for us, the constitution debate is a very important thing because it will cover many other issues also, including the Adani scam.
Is that only for the Congress, Mr. Tagore? Is the Adani issue only an issue for the Congress, or are you saying we in reference to the India bloc, or are you referring to the Congress?
I am repeating to you that all the India Alliance partners in the first day of Parliament sat together and decided that we should rise up the Adani scandal. All the India Alliance accepted it. Therefore, only we gone ahead with it. TMC was not part of that meeting because they told that they are busy with the working committee meeting. Therefore, we are very clear that all the India Alliance parties, which are there are many single member parties, 2-member parties, 3-member parties, and others, small parties. We take their views also seriously, and therefore we drafted our strategy to the parliament session. First week of session was been a successful thing. We were able to expose the government's unpreparedness on the Adani scandal, and they were exposed without any kind of steps by them. They were fielding senior advocates outside the parliament to speak for Mr. Adani. They were not having any kind of view itself how to approach the Adani scandal. For opposition has had a successful week in the first week. And this week, we don't want the government to block the parliament, because parliament is a place where we want the government to be questioned. And we don't want to be just cheerleaders of the government.
Are you sure? My final question to you, Mr. Tagore, is with the meeting that's happened with the Lok Sabha Speaker, with representatives of every political party, including yours, including the Congress, do you think from tomorrow will the parliament function? And this is, I think, a question that every Indian right now is asking, whether finally we'll see our parliamentarians sit together and ensure some business happens, some productivity is reported in the winter session.
We are having a Congress floor managers meeting at 6 o'clock with the opposition leaders Kharge Sahab and Rahul ji. In that meeting, the proposal will be discussed, and then tomorrow morning there will be India Alliance leaders meeting will be there also. Therefore, this will be discussed in that thing also. Because we are a party, we all believe that we collectively take decisions. The proposal, what we gave to the government was a discussion for 75 years of Constitution celebrations. That has been accepted at last. But the dates, what we wanted is from today or tomorrow, but they had pushed it to the next week. That has to be decided, and we hope that we want the parliament to function. We are not the people who want the parliament to be blocked. That is the Gujarat model, which wants to stop the parliament from functioning. Therefore, let us be very clear that we, India Alliance, want the parliament to function. We want our leader, Rahul Gandhi ji, to take up the people's issue. We want our leaders to speak on the Adani scandal, on the Manipur violence, on the Chambal violence, on the failed growth story of Mr. Modi of 5.8 quarter growth story. All other things we wanted to raise it, but for that, Parliament has to function, and the arrogance of the government must end.
You've raised a number of issues that the Congress looks to put forward. Let's see if in the coming days we will finally see some productive discussions happening in the winter session, of what's left at least of the session. Thanks very much, Mr. Manikam Tagore. I know you have that Congress huddle to get into right now, so we'll let you go. Thank you very much for joining us here on India Today. The point that I was referring to about the divide in the India bloc, here's where, in fact, there seems to be differences that's cropped up. There's no common ground on what issues should be raised, and here's why we're saying that. The Congress, for example, wants 100% focus on the Adani controversy, with Rahul Gandhi leading the charge. That's their single point focus and priority in Parliament. Other parties don't seem to be in agreement with that. The Aam Aadmi Party, for example, wants to bring up the issue of air pollution in the national capital. It's an issue that AAP, of course, wants to raise because they're pinning the blame on the central government. As far as the Trinamool Congress is concerned, and you heard Mr. Manikam Tagore say there that the TMC wasn't part of the initial strategy huddles, they've made it very clear that they want a discussion on Bangladesh, on Delhi-Dhaka talks and what's emerging of that, because obviously it impacts Bengal as well. The TMC also wants a discussion on Manipur, and they want a debate on that in the winter session of Parliament, which is why the TMC has been very publicly saying that, look, Adani is not the only issue that should be raised. There are many more issues in the country that also must be addressed. As far as the Samajwadi Party goes, they want a discussion on Sambal rights, and we've got you that information that after the meeting with the Lok Sabha Speaker, they have agreed that there will be a discussion on what happened in Sambal as well. Moshmi Singh is joining us live with more details on this. Moshmi, I've listed how different parties in the India bloc have different priorities in the winter session of Parliament. Now that the Lok Sabha Speaker has agreed that you're going to be seeing some business happening from tomorrow, he's agreed to debates on a number of issues, including the two-day Constitution Day debate. Are all of the India bloc parties on the same page? Are they going to be speaking in one voice on the same issues? Or is it still going to be led by different parties on different issues?
Of course, Akshita, the unity in the opposition has been a matter of much debate and headlines in the past as well. And considering the fact that this is, in fact, before the assembly elections in Delhi, as you said, that the Aam Aadmi Party would want more elbow room and leg room. On the other hand, the Trinamool Congress has been issuing a different, completely different tune and note, talking about the rights of the state and the problems of the state and how they don't want to harp on the Adani issue. The Samajwadi Party is more generous as far as, attending the India Alliance meetings are concerned, yet they have their own state issues that they want to highlight. And that's one reason that though there is an agreement, there is a large-scale agreement on the fact that, yes, now we'll let the House function with the Speaker now on board. Perhaps there will be different tones as far as a particular issue like Sambal or Manipur or Adani is concerned, because as the Congress would want to prioritize the weightage it gives to the Adani issue, perhaps Bangladesh and Manipur could surface for other regional satraps. So clearly there is some division, but perhaps somewhere they've now agreed to disagree in terms of certain matters and overall start the business of the day from tomorrow.
Okay, all right, Moshmi, thanks for those details. From tomorrow, considering that all parties are on the same page now, we are counting on ensuring no more washout days and that there is productive discussions, debates and bills that are brought up right now in the winter session of Parliament. Let's get you now images of Prime Minister Modi watching the film Sabarmati Report, which was released in theatres a few weeks ago based on the Godhra train burning incident. Prime Minister Modi, along with Home Minister Amit Shah, Rajnath Singh and other union ministers, NDA MPs, all came together to watch this film. There are also images coming in right after the screening. Prime Minister Modi is met with the cast and crew of the Sabarmati Report. This was a special screening that actually took place within the Parliament auditorium, and you had the NDA MPs in full attendance for this particular screening. Vikrant Massey, the lead actor of the film, also attended this special screening, and obviously he's been making headlines because it was today that he also announced his retirement from the film industry just at the age of 37. Now remember that the Sabarmati Report is a film that claims to reveal the truth behind the 2002 train fire incident in the Sabarmati Express at Godhra that killed 59 devotees returning from Ayodhya after participating in a religious ceremony. Now Prime Minister Modi was the chief guest of the Chief Minister, of Gujarat at the time of this tragic incident. In fact, just weeks ago, soon after the film released, you had Prime Minister Modi putting out a detailed poster on social media, hailing the film, saying it finally projects the truth of what happened back in the incident in 2002. You had Home Minister Amit Shah also endorsing the film. There are several BJP-ruled states where the film has also been declared tax-free. Let's get you some of the reactions from BJP leaders hailing the Sabarmati Report.
उस दिन ट्रेन में क्या घटित हुआ था, कैसे उसको एक बहुत बड़ा दंगे का स्वरूप दिया गया था, कैसे यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी, गृह मंत्री अमित शाह जी को बदनाम करने की कोशिश की गई थी, वो सच्चाई इस सिनेमा के द्वारा हम देखेंगे।
साबरमती रिपोर्ट बहुत अच्छी पिक्चर है। जो वास्तव में जो हुआ था, जो इंसिडेंट, उसका बराबर दिखाया कि हुआ क्या करके, क्योंकि गलतफहमियां बहुत थी उसमें, कि काफी ब्लेम कर रहे थे कि ये एक्सीडेंट था करके। वो इट इज नॉट एन एक्सीडेंट, बट एक्चुअली किया गया था।
Now, of course, we're expecting that images also will come out very, very soon of the Prime Minister's meeting with the cast and crew of the Sabarmati report. But like I said, this particular screening is happening on a day when Vikrant Massey took to social media to announce that he's retiring, essentially, from films, that next year will be his last film release. At the age of 37 at that, it's fueled a whole lot of theories on social media that maybe he is being targeted because of his political leanings. But one also angle that's coming forth is that maybe Vikrant is leaving acting for politics. Perhaps the retirement is a publicity stunt for his upcoming project, which you see far too often with these actors. The other theory, and this is based on really what our entertainment team also is telling us, is that Vikrant's thinking is that with the number of films that he's been putting out, he's scared that the audience may get tired of him soon. So to kind of renew his image, he's decided to take a break. And that's why there's another aspect of this which is being discussed, which is that this is only a break that Vikrant Massey is taking, and that he will return very soon to the film industry. There is talk on social media also that Vikrant is largely taking the step because he believes that with him now having taken a political stand, he's no longer going to get film projects, which we've seen with some actors in the industry previously as well. But right now, he's actually in the national capital, in Parliament, for that screening and is meeting with Prime Minister Modi. All of that speculation continuing. We'll hopefully get a statement from Vikrant Massey himself, putting rest to really what led to his decision to retire come next year. Let's move on to some other stories. I want to focus on what happened in Tamil Nadu over the weekend, which is that cyclone Fenjal made landfall in northern parts of Tamil Nadu. It was at around 2 a.m. that landfall took place between Karaikal and Mahabalipuram. And what you see on your screens right now, these are images from, in fact, Krishnagiri, where you had a bus stand completely full of water and buses, vehicles all being washed away. This shows you the extent really of damage wreaked in parts of Tamil Nadu because of this particular cyclone. There have been reports of flooding, of inundation, of vehicles being washed away, of landslides also. And that's why the Indian Army has been also deployed in some parts of Tamil Nadu, even in fact, Tiruvannamalai, where you had that landslide that was reported. Unfortunately, we've seen, in fact, a number of casualties in that particular incident, but evacuations have been continuing. And even as you see these images that are coming in, it wasn't just parts of Tamil Nadu. Puducherry also was very, very badly affected, having received record rainfall as a result of the cyclone. Authorities have been working round the clock to ensure that in places like Puducherry also, you see minimum impact. There's an attempt to ensure normalcy is brought back as soon as possible. But remember that also the onus is on officials here. Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has been out monitoring the situation on ground, monitoring the relief work. And here's an exclusive conversation that my colleague Pramod Madhav had with him, followed by ground reports on the situation in different parts of Tamil Nadu and Puducherry.
மீட் பண்ணிங்க திருப்திகரமா போயிட்டு இருக்கா சார்? நீங்க பாத்தீங்களா இல்லையா எப்படி பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க? எப்படி பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க நீங்களே சொல்லுங்களா? சிறப்பா பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. மத்திய அரசு போன வருஷத்துக்கானதே நிலுவைத்தொகை வரலன்னு சொல்லிருக்கீங்க. இப்போ என்ன நடக்க போகுது சார்? எங்களுடைய கடமை நாங்க கேட்க வேண்டியது, அது செய்ய வேண்டியது அவங்க கடமை. செய்யலைன்னா ஏன் செய்யலங்கிறத கேட்க முடியாது. நாங்க தொடர்ந்து கோரிக்கை வச்சு தான் இருப்போம். பார்லிமெண்ட்ல கூட இன்னைக்கு அதை ரேஸ் பண்றதுக்கு எங்க எம்பிக்கள் எல்லாம் முயற்சி பண்ணிருக்காங்க. அதுக்கே அலோவ் பண்ணல. டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட்ல வந்து 50 சென்டிமீட்டர்ஸ் மேல மழை வந்திருக்கு சார். இது வந்து காலநிலை மாற்றமா? இது சம்பந்தமா சென்ட்ரல் கவர்மெண்ட் ஏதாவது வந்து எடுக்கணுமா? அது காலநிலை மாற்றம் தான்ங்கிறது எங்களுடைய கணிப்பு. அது சென்ட்ரல் கவர்மெண்ட் என்ன முடிவு எடுத்து அறிவிக்கிறாங்க தெரியுது, எங்களுக்கு தெரியாது. இமீடியட்டா சென்ட்ரல் கவர்மெண்ட் உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது தேவைப்படுதா சார்? நிச்சயமா தேவைப்படுது. அதுல உறுதியா இருக்கும். நான் உடனே அதுக்கான தயார் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். அனுப்பிச்சு வைக்கிறோம்.
Due to the impact of cyclone Fenjal, several districts in North Tamil Nadu are reeling under severe flooding. In fact, we are reporting currently from the Satanu Dam in Tiruvannamalai district, which is one of the major dams in Tamil Nadu, and it is constructed across the Tenpannai River. on Sunday, that is yesterday, the water levels in the dam reached 118.05 feet as against the dam's total capacity of 119 feet. And hence the Water Resources Department decided to release 20,000 cusecs of water per second from the Satanu Dam, and a flood alert was issued to 14 villages along the bank of the Tenpanai River. In fact, the district administration also instructed officials to ensure that people or residents who are living in low-lying areas along the riverbank are shifted to safer places. In fact, even though rains have reduced, the big challenge is several water bodies, be it rivers, reservoirs or lakes, it has all reached its full capacity. It is overflowing, and that is causing extensive flooding and, of course, in turn causing a lot of difficulty for the people, and that remains the biggest challenge both for the government and for the people in North Tamil Nadu. With video journalist Daniel, this is Shilpa Nair in Tiruvannamalai for India Today.
All right, let's move on and get your updates now coming in from Bangladesh. Even as we're seeing the persecution of Hindus continuing brazenly in Bangladesh, you've got Mamata Banerjee speaking in the assembly and putting the onus on the central government. The West Bengal chief minister even said that she's ready to take Bangladeshi Hindus and vowed that we will provide them all the necessary help. We have enough resources to bring back our people, as she put it. This has led to political back and forth, with the BJP slamming Mamata, accusing her of shedding crocodile tears for Bangladesh. And this comes even as Mamata Banerjee put the onus on the central government, questioning what the central government has done. The BJP has responded by referring to Mamata as a Hindu-hating hypocrite.
মুখ্যমন্ত্রী বিধানসভায় একটু আগে বলছেন ভারত সরকার পিস কিপিং ফোর্স জাতিসংঘকে দিয়ে পাঠান। মাননীয়া ফালাকাটায় দুর্গা মণ্ডপে ঢুকে যখন জিহাদিরা বলল শাক বাজাবেন না, উলুধ্বনি দেবেন না, ঢাক বাজাবেন না, কোথায় ছিল আপনার পুলিশ? গার্ডেন দিচ্ছে দুর্গা মণ্ডপে ঢুকে বলল গীতা পাঠ, চণ্ডী পাঠ, মন্ত্র উচ্চারণের মাইক বন্ধ করো, কোথায় ছিল আপনার পুলিশ? ওপারে ইউনুস যাহা, এবারে মমতা ব্যানার্জি তাহা। এ লড়াই বাঁচার লড়াই, এ লড়াই টিকে থাকার নয়, অস্তিত্ব রক্ষার লড়াই। সংখ্যা আমরা কমছি, ওরা বাড়ছে। বিএসএফ কে জমি দিচ্ছে না, হু করে ঢুকছে।
Away from the politics playing out in India, let's talk about the situation in Bangladesh and the shocking persecution of Hindus that has been happening for the last many weeks in the neighboring country. But it's not the first time. This is something that's repeatedly happened in Bangladesh in the last many decades. I explain in our next detailed report. Bangladesh, for the last many months, has been witnessing attacks on Hindus, attempts to silence their voices, and large-scale persecution of the minority community. Now, let's tell you first about the Hindu population in Bangladesh. Hindus account for just about 7.95% of the total population in Bangladesh. A small number, and yet they are the second largest community. That's because Bangladesh has a massive Muslim population. About 91% of the population in the country is Muslim. This wasn't always the case. According to the official 1951 census for East Bengal, as it was called then, Hindus comprised of 22% of the population of the province. That went down to 15% in 1991 and then to just 8.5% in 2011. 11 years later, in the 2022 census, that number is at 7.95%. Many believe that the reason for the Hindu population decline in Bangladesh is because of what we're seeing right now, the persecution of this religion. And this has happened despite clear constitutional provisions that ensure freedom to practice one's religion. And that brings us to the question, is Bangladesh a secular nation? Bangladesh is an Islamic nation. Islam was made the state religion of Bangladesh only in 1988. It overturned the 1971 constitution, which had declared Bangladesh, much like India, as a secular state. But While Bangladesh is an Islamic nation, there are provisions. There's Article 41 in their constitution that recognizes other religions, that recognizes and gives citizens the right to practice their religion. Far from reality, though, which brings us to the next question. Have Hindus always been targeted in Bangladesh? The answer, unfortunately, is yes. Some of the worst anti-Hindu agitations took place during the late 1980s and the 1990s. For example, in November 1990, during the Babri movement in Ayodhya, ripples were felt in Bangladesh as well, as mobs set fire to Hindu temples in Chittagong and Dhaka, the same districts that are seeing the maximum attacks against Hindus even today. Let's tell you about some of the worst attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh and take you back to 1950, when a massacre took place on board a train. Referred to as the Anderson Bridge Massacre, attackers boarded a train from both ends along the bridge, singled out and killed most of the Hindus on board the train. The compartments were locked, the train was stopped, and Hindus' throats were slit, their bodies thrown into the river. 21 years later, in 1971, another massacre of Hindus took place in Dhaka, as Hindus living around the Ramna Kali temple were killed during the Indo-Pakistan War. Nearly 250 Hindus were killed and the temple set on fire in this horrifying incident. And what I'm talking about, these are just two of the many documented massacres that Hindus have been subjected to in the last many decades in Bangladesh. And shockingly, even in the 21st century, this is continuing. So why is it happening now? Why are Hindus being targeted now? On August 5th, the then Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, fled from her country despite being in power for 15 years. It was a result of her facing protests over a proposed quota system by her government. Her escape to India plunged Bangladesh into a crisis, and 3 days later, Mohammad Yunus took over as the interim head of the government. Yunus is a renowned economist and civil society leader and was even awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006. The irony of it all, considering it's now under Yunus that Hindus are being persecuted in this manner. Hindus in Bangladesh are largely considered to be supporters of Sheikh Hasina's secular Awami League party, which is why the change of regime has translated to an unbridled reign of terror for Hindus. Let's tell you about the reactions that have come in, particularly how has India reacted to the violence. The Indian government has repeatedly called upon the Yunus government to crack down on the extremists who are targeting Hindus in Bangladesh. Most recently, over the arrest of an ISKCON monk. The Indian government issued this statement. I'm reading their statement now. We've noted with deep concern the arrest and denial of bail to Sri Chinmoy Krishnadas. This incident follows the multiple attacks on Hindus and other minorities by extremist elements in Bangladesh. It's unfortunate that while the perpetrators of these incidents remain at large, charges should be pressed against a religious leader presenting legitimate demands through peaceful gatherings. We urge Bangladesh authorities to ensure the safety and security of Hindus and all minorities. So like India has spoken out, have other countries too? Has there been global concern? There have been very few statements, unfortunately, expressing concern over what's happening in Bangladesh. The United Nations back in August, soon after the transition of power, had condemned attacks on Hindus, but there's been no attempt to intervene and ensure the safety of Hindus. That's all we have time for in this edition of 6 p.m. Prime. Thanks very much for tuning in.